You think one Indominus Rex was bad? Imagine two. Not just one genetically engineered super predator, but a pair of them loose on Isla Nublar. The park wouldn't just fall, it would be utterly obliterated. This isn't just a breakdown, it's an extinction level event for everyone on this island. But how would that even be the case? What were we even wrong about? Don't worry, I'll thoroughly explain it all in this video. You see, one thing which has always bugged me from the film was the Indominus Rex sibling. And I know you're probably going to say she ate her at birth. That simply isn't true. I'll thoroughly explain all that throughout the video though, but let's move on to the meat and bones. You see, one thing which has always bugged me is how Owen Grady and that man seem to just walk into the Indominus Rex pen. I mean, she's chipped, right? Wouldn't the first thing they do before they allow anyone into that enclosure is check to see if she's in there? Now sure, she hides from the thermal cameras, but before you let anyone in that enclosure, you'll think, right, let's check to see where her chip tells us where she is. But nope, not in this case. They totally bypass that, let him in, and all hell breaks loose, ultimately leading to the escape of the single Indominus Rex. But what if two Rexes escaped? And this was all a ploy. Let's just imagine that the two Indominus Rexes have escaped roughly around the same time. Now obviously this will completely change the Jurassic World landscape, the Jurassic World lore, and how the entire film would have even taken place. I mean, even the ending would be completely different. If you had two Indominus Rexes, would they have teamed up with the Raptors? Would they have forced Rexy into joining their pack, or simply killed her outright? What would the entire island look like? Well, let's start at the very beginning here, and that is how she didn't kill her sibling straight out of the egg. Many newborns just simply don't work like that. If she did kill her, it would have been probably later on in the development process. I mean, they would have been in their juvenile years at least, although you could say that the cuttlefish DNA they used could have brought her to cannibalism. We know cuttlefish are cannibals. Well, we know that could play a part, but look at this for a second. She's extremely intelligent. She marks up her pen's enclosure to make it look like she's already escaped. What if the two Indominus Rexes concocted an escape plan together? You see, during the film, we learn very little about the Indominus Rex's backstory. I mean, if the Indominus Rex 1 did kill his sibling, where was the corpse? Where was the other tracker? When did this happen? Could it have happened a few days before the events of Jurassic World take place? We also know from the film source material itself that the Indominus Rex wasn't fully grown. Dr. Wu confirms this. So what if the Indominus Rex allegedly kills her sibling just before Owen goes into the pen? We know Claire says she ate her sibling, but what, all of it? Bones and all? That doesn't seem to make sense. Would they have then sent a team into that pen to retrieve her tracker? All of this isn't making sense. I then started to look into this in more detail, piecing together her movements across the island, again cross-referencing it with the other canonical entries such as Camp Cretaceous. I mean, in Camp Cretaceous we see her come across Toro, the Carnotaurus, the part where she literally destroys the camper's camp in Camp Cretaceous, and cross-referencing it with other parts throughout the film. Listen, what I'm trying to say is that they don't line up perfectly. The timeline of events in Camp Cretaceous doesn't line up perfectly with the timeline in Jurassic World. It'd be so much easier to say there was a second Indominus Rex. And I'll quickly explain now how the both of them could have escaped and had been their plan from the start. We know the Indominus Rex is a super intelligent animal. It tries to fool them that it's left the pen. But what if that was only the end of the plan? The start of it was faking an attack on her sibling, knowing that it has a tracker in there, that they will come in to see if it's attacked her. So picture this a second. The Indominus Rex fakes an attack on her siblings maybe a few hours, a day max, before Owen Grady goes in the pen. This would convince Claire that she's attacked and ate it, but what's actually happened is the Indominus fakes the attack, the Indominus Rex sibling goes invisible / camouflages, also turns on its heat blocking abilities, therefore they'd only think one Indominus Rex is in there. This then prompts the original Indominus to make it look like it's escaped over the wall. It could have even escaped anyway over the wall without them knowing, leaving the sibling in there to escape afterwards. That would mean, in a nutshell, the original did escape over the wall. That would explain how the marks were so high. It literally climbed up and over the fence, and the one left in the pen was literally the sibling who hid her signature, camouflaged, and waited for her chance to escape. I know it sounds absolutely wild, right? But that also then would line up with how different events occur at at different times throughout World and Camp Cretaceous. There was 2 of them. But hold your horses on that for just 1 second. Whether you believe that or not, let's just picture what it would have looked like if the 2 escaped at the same time. How would that play out? Would they team up with the raptor pack? Would they team up or kill Rexy? And what would this mean for the ending of Jurassic World and the franchise after it? Well, I'm going to thoroughly explain all that as well. You see, if they both escape together, we can assume they have an element of socialization and teamwork. There would obviously be a dominant structure in place, you know, a hierarchy very much like the raptors, which we see in Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Jurassic Park 3, Jurassic World. Because they have that raptor DNA, they would have a hierarchy structure. And thus one of them would be the dominant alpha. For now, let's just assume that was the original Indominus Rex, not the sibling, just to make things easier. Now, after the initial escape, let's assume that Jurassic World doesn't know there's a second Indominus Rex. They're still under the impression that she ate the other one, although there's a big plot hole here. What would have happened with her chip? Well, we know the original would claw hers out. Could we assume the same of the second one? Well, Jurassic World doesn't give us any evidence of this. It doesn't track a second Indominus Rex at all. The only possible explanation we could have is that when they were in the pen together, leading up to their escape, the original attacks the sibling and claws out the chip. The sibling can then go invisible, and the only thing which would be on the floor is a hunk of flesh with this tracker inside of it. That then fools the people who are watching, believing that the original ate the sibling, which wasn't true. They just couldn't see her because the chip was clawed out, she'd blocked her heat signature, and she'd camouflaged. That then confidently lines up with the escape plan. You see, if the original did climb over the walls and escape, the sibling would be left in the pen. And that is the tracker they actually pick up. Not in her body, but say ripped out on the floor, because the original would still have hers in, which she claws out later on. So now this starts to fit more in with the movie, and they still believe there's only one. These Indominuses are a sneaky pair, I tell ya. So at this point, the original is now well on its way to the main island. The second has just left the pen, ate that man behind the track, and it's at this point where they pick up the signal of the original heading towards the island. The second is now free to continue other paths of destruction which we see in Camp Cretaceous, which doesn't really line up with the film. And because the 2 Indominus Rexes are potentially identical, there's no way you'd be telling, unless you've seen scars, etc., which Indominus Rex was on screen at any given time. And this is where things start to get extremely interesting, because let's say now we know that the alpha was the original and the beta is the sibling. They are going to meet back up at some point. And when they do they reform their pack, or do they make separate ones? That is purely speculation. Now, based on the fact that they helped each other escape, there was already a pack in place, the chances are they would just form their pack back together again. Would they then allow the raptors to become part of that pack? Now, usually when you see wolves, tigers, etc., lions, they don't usually accept other members from other packs. They'll kill them outright. Or at least, have wars, etc. Look at chimpanzees. It just doesn't seem to happen. And because now the Indominus Rex pair already have a dynamic and a pack, I think they personally just attack the raptors outright. I mean, these Indominus Rexes are a pair of killing machines. They're not going to need any more backup. They now have each other. They would rip that raptor pack limb from limb. And it's at this point where I'd like to mention something here. We have a choice. Do we continue building this second Indominus Rex into the Jurassic World lore? Because it is possible. The Indominuses could go their separate ways, which would explain again the split in Camp Cretaceous to Jurassic World's timelines perfectly. But what wouldn't be explained is what would actually happen to that second Indominus. Say the film's events carry out with the single Endom on one side of the island and the other Endom on the other. The one Indominus does team up with a raptor pack, fights Rexy, and then dies to the Mosasaurus. What becomes of the other one? And it's never mentioned again in any of the movies. Now, we could say that second Indominus was taken away, Manticorp Island, Biocen, yada yada yada, other military applications. Now, I'm not saying that isn't an option, because that's exactly what happens to the Spinosaurus on Isla Sorna. It gets taken away by Manticorp, and no one knew about that. So the same thing could happen with the second Indominus sibling. I mean, InGen military themselves were even using Jurassic World as a testing ground. Who's to say they don't go back a few days later and find this Indominus Rex? Well, the sibling anyway, and take it off for their own purposes. But let me hold you right there. Let's say the 2 Indominus Rexes did team up. Now, we know this doesn't happen in the movie. This isn't lore accurate, but what would happen? How would this play out? Well, let's say they teamed up just before the encounter with the raptor pack. I believe there will be no chance for communication, and I believe they will literally continue their killing spree. The presence of 2 I-Rexes would affect the behaviour of the other park dinosaurs massively, potentially causing widespread ruin, stampede, and eventually ecosystem collapse. If the Spinosaurus allegedly collapsed Site B's ecosystem, Isla Sorna's, imagine what 2 I-Rexes could do unchecked. Owen, Clay, etc., let's say leave the island, because there's no way they can take on the I-Rex now. The raptor pack's dead. They'd have no choice but to evacuate. The pair of I-Rexes would then rampage throughout the island, going in each and every paddock it wants, teaming up against Rexy, taking her down. I mean, she nearly lost herself to the single I-Rex, so 2, she wouldn't stand a chance. Eventually, they would hunt down every single animal they could find and catch on their own, single-handedly wiping out the ecosystem. But then this is where things take a bit of a drastic turn. You see, think back to that cuttlefish DNA. There's potential there for the I-Rexes to turn on each other. The alliance would be broken. You see, if they're not getting any stimulation, because they've hunted every single thing on that island, the only stimulation they could get is from hunting each other, and thus inevitably going back to the circle of life. The one Indominus would always go back to eating and killing the sibling, the ultimate destruction of the park. This would be far beyond what we ever saw and depicted in the film, leaving Isla Nublar a permanent no-go zone. Even though it was before, imagine what would have happened after. After the I-Rex had then killed his sibling, everything on the island, I think it would start to turn on itself. I know it sounds bizarre, but look at when you see parrots in captivity. If they don't have any type of stimulation, they start to become aggravated and start hurting themselves, itching, constantly scratching, and literally ripping itself apart. I believe the I-Rex would do something similar, and ultimately Jurassic World itself would have the same fate. The I-Rexes would eventually wipe themselves out. Either way, both leading to the same outcome. Whether there was 2 I-Rexes or 1, all leads to the same end. But what do you think? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this and build some hype. Share it with a fellow Jurassic fan. Hit the hype buttons wherever they go below. Subscribe for plenty more Jurassic World content upcoming, because there's loads on the channel. I'm currently going to be away in Orlando, checking out the Jurassic Park area there, so there's loads of Jurassic Park content coming. Plenty more theories as well. So stay tuned, hit subscribe. Massive thanks to the InGen security team who are on screen now, DVM Wannabe 1018, Hammer Time, and our Jurassic CEO, Joseph Frost's Ghost. Thanks guys. And if you were taking a vacation in Jurassic World when the Indominus Rex escaped, could your day get any worse? You bet Jurassic can. Catch you later.